Good evening, everyone. This is I'm gonna call the planning board meeting of December 12th order. Hi, John.
December.
No, 4th. September 4th, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. And tonight we have Sue Philbrick here, Gordon Brewster.
Here.
Peter Morton.
Here.
Sandy Bodmer Turner.
Here.
Chris Olney.
Here.
Ryan Fry.
Here.
Richard or Jane, Sam Philbrick, Jack, can you tell us if you can hear us?
Loud and clear.
Great. Well, tonight, we are going to talk about our zoning proposal for our downtown zoning. So, we're gonna try to make this work so we can have, an informative discussion. And welcome to those of you who might be with us for the first time tonight. Peter, why don't you go ahead and share this presentation? Great. We're doing two things that we're actually going to try to create a little recording that can go up on the website. So if it feels a little formal, that's that we're trying to do two things. So as I said, welcome to the Manchester Downtown Zoning Forum. To find out more information, there's a link on the website off the homepage. We have a slide at the end that shows you where you can find that, or you can go to Manchester, Mass. 838/downtown zoning. And first, I wanted to again just introduce the planning board members here: Sue Philbrick, Gordon Brewster, Peter Morton, Sandy Bodmer Turner, Chris Olney, and Brian Fry. Our goal tonight is to introduce you to the proposal to create zoning for Manchester's downtown. And some of you have been certainly following this closely since we started talking about this 6 months ago. And some of you might be here for the first time. So welcome, and we will have plenty of time for questions and answers to discussion and getting your input at the end. Go ahead. The idea of updating our zoning is really not new. In 2019, the master plan, which took a long time to put together, identified that revising the zoning in downtown to help the downtown be more vibrant was a key finding of the master plan. We also want to preserve space for commercial activity in downtown buildings. We heard during the MBTA zoning process that the public was very interested in ensuring that commercial activity in our core downtown remained. And we had a forum in June where I think we had about 65 people, and pretty much unanimously people wanted to see a commercial downtown remain and be strengthened. Zoning is just one tool for doing that, and we recognize this, but it is a tool that the planning board is well suited to put forward. Okay, go ahead. Our current zoning, we need to sort of recognize that it came after the downtown was pretty much built out, and it does not reflect the current property use patterns really in many ways at all. It allows all downtown properties, for the most part, they have enough lot coverage, lot area, and so forth, to become single or two-family homes by right. And it requires that many downtown property owners get a special permit to do even modest improvements to meet the needs of a new or transition commercial client. So, for example, the Santander Bank, which is right at an important link between Central Street and Union Street, links the two major parts of our commercial area, could become residential by right if the bank were to decide to no longer operate that. Okay. So as we talk about things today, we're going to talk about a few terms. We'll use them often, so we thought we'd define them. The first is commercial, and commercial is basically any shop or service, restaurant, gallery, offices, or community space. The proposed zoning has a detailed list, which we will not get into tonight, but nonetheless, commercial is those things that you would think of that have transactional business or people coming and going. Mixed use is a combination of commercial and residential uses, and residential is housing. Setbacks or dimensional requirements or the distances from front, side, and rear property lines. And by right are property uses that conform to zoning. So what are we proposing? We're proposing zoning to preserve and enhance what we have today. A mix of businesses and residential spaces, as you can see in the picture, the building that's pictured here. Commercial storefronts that are right along the street with residential above. And we also want to reduce some of those permitting steps necessary for some development to try to help business owners transition from one commercial use to another. We also are proposing a design review process and changes in the setbacks and dimensional requirements to reflect what's here today. Okay. So the plan is to create 2 new districts. And what we're going to do is walk you through them. Most of the properties in it, as you see here, are in today's general district, with a small part that's in District A, which is a residential district. So the first district is the town center. And I'm going to orient you by starting on the street, sort of by Seaside 1. If you face with your back to Seaside 1, and we're going to take a walk here, so use your imagination. Your back is to Seaside 1, you walk left, and you can see Boo Bird, which would be, that building would be part of the town center district. And then you turn right down Elm Street, and the right side of Elm Street, or the water side, would be also in this district as you head toward the bike shop.
Sarah, do you want me to?
I think we're okay because we don't have.
Okay.
Thanks. Then the right side of Elm Street would be also in the new town center. It has currently offices of Olson and Lewis. It has Mariposa, an office building, and the bike shop. Okay. Then you come back up Elm Street and head up Central Street. So the district includes all of Central Street from Elm Street to Union Street. And this is across from Town Hall. So we're walking with Town Hall on our right and Caldwell Banker on our left here. And this is in the historic district. Keep going. Up Central Street, you can see here a good example of what we want to retain. Buildings that are close to the street with commercial on the first floor and residential spaces above. Okay, keep going. Now we continue just up School Street to the old Hooper's building, or what some people with most recently Kraft. That's on the left, and the large apartment building that's on the corner of Union and School is on the right. That's currently under construction. Interestingly, under today's zoning, come on in. Under today's zoning, rebuilding many of these properties that we're looking at pictures of would not be allowed under today's zoning as of right, because they're too close to the street or have other things that don't comply with zoning. Okay, as we continue down the street, we will be including all of Union Street, which is also in the historic district. And then up to the corner of Union and Beach Street, still in the historic district. The town center district continues up to the corner of Washington and Beach Street and goes down Beach Street. The end of the historic district is just at the corner of the J. Barrett building on the right here. The town center district includes 4 Beach Street and the Sea Breeze variety. Now, these properties are not in the historic district. Across the street is Callas and the stock exchange up to the post office. Callas is oops, go back for a second. Callas and the stock exchange are great examples of a zero side setback building built right up against the building next to it. And customers for the stock exchange and Callas, for example, park in front of the building, along the street, perhaps along Summer Street, but not on site. So that's a distinguishing factor. Okay, keep going. The last part of this district extends to the north side of Summer Street, where the business condo, which has Laughing Gull in it, and residences above are existing, right? And stops at the property for 10 Summer Street. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sue, who's going to talk about the zoning details for the town center district.
I have the privilege of talking about zoning details. In zoning, the devil truly is in the details. So make sure you have a cup of coffee at home as we go through the details. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So we're going to start town center. We'll talk about 4 of the zoning terms. The first is allowed uses. And the details of allowed uses in the town center. The uses, as Sarah said, it's mixed. And it's mixed by right, commercial and residential. Today, if you owned one of these properties, you could raise it and put up a single family home. That's not what folks want. So this rule is meant to include both residential and commercial. You must have commercial on the first floor along the street. Minimum depth of 25 feet in from the street. You can have residential behind that if your building is large enough. And then again, up above. You can have up to 4 residential units on a lot, if the lot is big enough for that. Residents can be above, behind. Now, let's say the economy tanks and a property owner can't fill that first floor space. Try so hard, nothing sticks. In the town center district, you can come before the planning board and apply for a special permit to put residential on the first floor. But the rules of the town center have a preference for commercial on the first floor. Dimensions. First, the height, 35 feet, 2.5 stories, applies to all the properties in the town center. That's the same as it is today in the G district. Side is different. The side has a 0 setback. As Sarah was saying, that means the buildings are right next to each other. And what that does is it allows for a continuous flow of commercial stores, restaurants, offices without breaks in the action between the building. So that's the rationale behind 0 setbacks. And it's already there in most of the downtown that way. Currently, the setback in the G is 10 feet. So that's changed. Front setback, right on the sidewalk, 0 feet. Currently, the setback in the G district is 5 feet. Rear setback, 10 feet. That's the same as it is today. Lot coverage is 60% by the building. That's the density of the property on a particular lot. Currently, it's 40%. And the lot size, 6,000 square foot minimum. Parking. That's it. That refers to what the property owner must provide in terms of parking. It's not what parking is available. What is the responsibility of the property owner? For commercial, 0 spaces. It's the way it is today, basically. Residential for the properties above, one space per unit, condo, apartment, one parking space. And that parking space has to be part of the property on the lot, and it can't be in front of the building. It has to be behind the building. So we don't want to be walking down the street and have a row of cars and then a building. And design standards. So as Sarah was saying, many of the properties in the town center district are in the historic district. So the historic district standards would apply. There is a review by the historic commission. That's no change from today. And if the building is in the historic district. But if the building is beyond the historic district, but still in the town center, we're going to incorporate the same design standards that the town passed for the MBTA zone. And you can find that in section 9.4.9. And that includes a site plan review by a design committee that already exists.
So I think we're gonna hold questions till the end, just because we're for a couple of, I think that will help us get through this, and then we can consolidate the questions. So thank you, Sue. I'm gonna talk about the other district, which is the Harbor's Edge district here. Go ahead, Peter. The Harbor's Edge district today is almost entirely commercial. And they are commercial properties that have parking to meet their existing commercial customers. And that parking is on site. And that's quite different than most of the properties within the town center. It's really one of the big distinguishing features. The Harbor's Edge district includes the Cape Ann Savings Bank Plaza, the 35 Beach Street, and the hardware store. It also includes Crosby's, and the lower picture is of the old train station, or where the consignment store Madam Haddam is located. It also includes Summer Street along the tracks. So that includes the M&T Bank and the dry cleaner. Okay, go ahead. The Harbor's Edge district also includes Harbor's Point. That is currently the largest parcel in all of this downtown zoning districts. Includes the pharmacy, the area where Dunkin' Donuts and Bravo are, as well as the offices. And today that parcel is entirely zoned residential. Go back once.
Oh, sorry.
Oop, that's okay. That parcel is zoned entirely residential because it is currently in District A. All right, I'm gonna let Sue talk about the details again.
So what uses are allowed in the Harbor's Edge district? Just commercial and community uses. There's the table of uses in the proposed zoning. It's very similar to the commercial and non-residential uses that are already allowed in this area. But the difference is on the first floor, there's no opportunity for residential on the first floor. And it makes sense when you look at the buildings that we've included in the Harbor's Edge district. Residential is allowed above the first floor. And there's a maximum of 15 units per acre. If there are more than 5 units, 20% of those units must be affordable. So we've tried to incorporate an affordability part of the new zoning rules. If a piece of property is large enough that it can accommodate that many residential units above the first floor. The dimensional requirements, height is 38 feet. Now currently the height requirement in the G district and in the A district is 35 feet or 2.5 stories. So we have increased it by 3 feet. And that was because of feedback we got from property owners who want to have commercial space on the first floor, but felt that they needed a little bit more room to make that happen with residential above these larger properties. We did have an estimate from the DPU of the DPW, DPW of the height of Harbor's Point, which we're looking at there, and it's 44 feet. So as Sarah was saying before, what's there doesn't match the zoning. We're trying to make the zoning accommodate what's there and what people want to have there. Right, let's go to the dimensions. Frontage, 0 feet. Again, that's change. G district was 5, and A, which this is in, is 30 feet because it's meant to be single family residential. Let's see, front, 0, that's change. G is 5, or sorry, I mixed those up. Front, G is 5, A is 30, side 10 feet, that's also a change in this property, which would have been 20 feet. In G, it's 10, that's no change. Rear, the same for G, 10 feet. In A, where this is, it was 40 feet. And that just makes no sense where we want to have buildings like this. Lot coverage, 60% by structures, 80% by impervious. In G, it's 40% and 70%. And in A, it's only 15% and 30%. Lot size, 6,000 square foot minimum. That's the same as G, 6,000 square foot minimum, but in A, 22,500 square foot lot minimum. Again, it just does not fit properties such as this. Parking, commercial will vary based on the type of commercial business or use that is in the building. And that's the same as our current zoning, section 6.1, which deals with parking. That's no change from current zone. Residential, we're sticking with the 1 space per unit. In A, which was the single family, it's 2. In G, 1.5, so that's change. Design standards, none of this area is in the historic district, so we want design standards to apply. So again, it's going to be the same design standards contained within the MBTA zoning, section 9.4.9, which includes a site plan reviewed by the design committee. Need to do that? Okay. So balance. What we've really tried to do over the past several months since the summer is listen to a wide range of opinions about the downtown, from property owners, business owners, people who live downtown, people who shop downtown, and obviously the most important voices are the people who live in our town. And there's a wide range of opinions. So we've tried to balance people's opinions about more density, less density, more parking, less parking, requirements for dimensions, and as of right, which means having the ability, of course, with a building permit and following all of the other land use rules, to be able to build without having to go for a special permit every time you want to do something on your property downtown.
Okay, and lastly, I think can you just go back to that slide? Sue mentioned one thing that's very important if people are not developing property all the time. You do have to meet all the other land use rules. If you're in the wetland or the floodplain, those rules need to be adhered to as well. So this doesn't take the place of that. Okay, go ahead, Peter. Lastly, we really like this little quote from the master plan about Manchester's downtown. Manchester's downtown is another highly valued asset. Not only is the center of commerce and governance, it retains its original settlement pattern with businesses and public facilities knit tightly together with residential neighborhoods. It is rich with historic architecture and is framed by our beautiful harbor. So with that, we are going to open it up for questions and answers. And I think what we'll do is, go to the next slide, because that will show you where you can find out more information. The front page of the Manchester's website has a button at the lower left corner, and that will bring you right to the downtown zoning part of the planning board page, where we have the draft zoning, and it is still a draft. We have till the spring to finalize it, and we are listening carefully to what people say. And there's a whole series of 20 plus frequently asked questions, as well as summary, and the map is there too. So with that, we'll stop sharing the screen. Thank you, Peter. And take comments and questions from both online and from the public. So any comments or questions from folks? John?
Question, in the town center district, it's a mixed use with the first floor front, I think is retail. And if someone was having a difficult time renting that, they could get a special permit to convert to residential. Is that in perpetuity? Is that until the property is sold? Is there some timeline associated with that?
I think it would depend on the conditions of the special permit.
Mhm.
So
It
that
could be any of that.
it could be any of that if there was, sometimes, but also it is 4 residential units per lot. So if you already had 4 residential units, you might expand one of them and with your special permit so that, or ask for variance on that issue. Peter, do you want to just write down the questions that
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
asking so we make
Here's a
sure?
marker.
Yeah, it's over on the, thank you.
I'll try and remember that one, John.
Is that a Mark, am I accurate on that?
Yes,
Okay.
except
Go
getting a variance for a 5th unit, that would be a use variance. So typically the zoning board would not issue a use variance.
Okay.
So, but they would be able to expand a unit.
John?
Curious as to the reason why we would limit the number of units.
Okay, the question is, why would we limit the number of units?
For example, if there were a large lot that had way more capacity than 4 units, why would we limit them?
Can I try and
Go ahead, Chris.
take a stab at that? The answer is there are no large lots. And, a parking space takes 300 square feet, so 4 parking spaces is 1,200 square feet. That's a third of a typical lot in the town. So it's probably the limiting factor is gonna be the square feet of the lot, not the number of units that you can put on.
So why wouldn't we use some mechanism of lot size to determine the number of units?
We just try, well, the second answer is because there's a 4-unit limit currently in the zoning ordinance, and so we're just mirroring what's there now. Now, in the Harbor's Edge district, the lot sizes are bigger, and so we're saying, yeah, you could put more than 4 units there, but not more than 15 units an acre, and that's to mirror the MBTA zoning.
I'm just curious what's going to happen with the cargo building. Any,
Chris, you were gonna take that one.
So the cargo building is not before the planning board, so we really aren't capable of answering it. It's being reviewed by the zoning board of appeals for a height variance. That height variance would still apply under the new zoning.
So the cargo building has been proposed, they proposed a number of different things and have been evolving. But at the simplest, they had 3 residential units, and I believe they've now added a very small commercial unit on the side. But that's allowed by zoning today, that we could convert cargo to 3 residential units with a special permit. And so while it's not the reason for this, and this would not, and if this were to pass, they've already submitted some of their paper, depending where they are in the process, our zoning change would not apply to them. But extrapolate out from that, And you see why we're trying to address our zoning in downtown.
Thanks.
Anybody online? I'm not seeing.
Richard Smith.
Richard.
Oh, hi, good evening. Really good to see this zoning moving ahead. Certainly something that needs to be done. I have a few questions. First is, have you done a computation to determine how many units of residential are now buildable under the new rules? I did a little bit of it in shorthand, and I was surprised at the number, and I think it would be good to do that and compare it with the adjoining densities. Since I think you have to assume that the residential build out might well be to the full extent that you allow. I think I've expressed my concern about the parking before. I think one space per unit means that you are imposing some parking penalty on, or parking load on, the rest of the area. And finally, I have a question about the 4 units per lot in the town center. Does that not mean that someone could split a parcel and increase the number of units, and what safeguard is there for that?
Do you want to?
First off, I'm not sure how many lots in the downtown are 12,000 square feet or greater that could be split. The largest lot, one of the larger lots, is the cargo building. And just because it's zoned for the potential of 4 units doesn't mean that's what you're going to get. They're only proposing 3. So I think as you go up and down the street, another example where they could have applied for 4 units with a special permit would have been 7 Central Street. And again, they chose to do 3. So that was granted. And that building incidentally also retains commercial in the front of the building as well, which is similar to what our zoning is. So.
Kathy McCabe from McCabe Associates, can you help us to understand the best practice from a planning board perspective about the question of a 100% build out as a matter of planning? You know, we've just got 2 examples where they didn't fill out 100% of what was possible. What, from a planning perspective, can you help us to understand how to think about that?
So one of the, I'm Kathy McCabe, and I'm a professional planner and a fellow of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've been working with the planning board and facilitated the downtown forum, just as a FYI who I am. In terms of addressing the issue of build out, zoning really should provide that envelope for what the town would like to see as the maximum build out, recognizing that there may be variances periodically if there is an adverse circumstances that merit a variance, which I think your zoning board follows state law on that. So you're looking at what your maximum build out is in your zoning ordinance. So it's sometimes for the specific design configurations of a lot, over what the owner is willing to invest, what they feel the market will be, they may alter it and may or may not build out to the maximum. But you want to find the maximum because that also then is used by the town in terms of capital budget planning, in terms of utility planning. So thinking through what that maximum build out that you want is really important. And thinking through the maximum build out is also an important consideration in terms of parking. You've got examples where many downtowns have moved towards commercial uses not having a parking requirement. and thinking of parking as a community resource, often on-street, sometimes with municipal lots, and you have a municipal lot as well as on-street parking. Residential, your parking requirements in your downtown are proposed to be 1 space per unit. That's in keeping with best practices today, which is moving, particularly in central business districts, whether they're small town centers or downtowns the size of Manchester, or downtowns even like Beverly or Salem. People are going to 1 space per unit. One of the examples I've used previously is downtown Winchester, which is, just off 93 and has a small downtown with various water bodies. They're in their central business district, in their core area, they're for units, multifamily units and mid-rise buildings, they're requiring 0.75 parking spaces per unit. So that's a little smaller, lower parking requirement. But they're also similar to Manchester. They have a downtown train stop. So they rely on that and they feel like it's a walkable downtown like Manchester. So it's equivalent. So those are some of the considerations when you're thinking about build out. You also had a requirement for permeable surfaces, which is really a response to looking at climate change and sustainability, as well as stormwater management. So that can be accomplished still with parking by using permeable surfaces for parking. And there is permeable asphalt. So there are a range of strategies.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the online. Sarah Melish.
2 things. Number one, I believe I heard that you're requiring an affordable unit if it's more than 5. I believe with the MBTA zoning, it was 5 or more because 20% of 5 is 1. So you might want to make it consistent. The other thing is I am concerned in that area with increasing the coverage allowed for structures and impermeable surfaces because of the low water table. And that's one thing that the ZBA has been very strict about, is making sure that the coverage meets the zoning, and expanding it raises concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things we can definitely look again at that lot coverage. One of the things, if you look in the downtown, it's almost 100% today impervious, sorry. And so even though we're raising the requirements from today's zoning, again, today's zoning does not reflect what's there. And so we should carefully look at what's there, make sure we don't decrease that. But if we require compliance with this new zoning, we may actually increase pervious surface, if that makes sense, because so much of it is currently paved over. But we'll look at that. Thank you, Sarah. Gary Gilbert.
I got a few things. One of them is really small, so start with that. You keep mentioning site plan review about the design committee, but my understanding was site plan review is done by the planning board, and design review committee would be part of the 3A zoning that some people would trigger a design review board, but the design review board, I don't believe is going to be reviewing site plans. Is that correct?
No, the idea is that the design review board would actually review the properties that are not in the MBTA zoning. I mean, that are not in historic.
Including
Yes.
site plan issues. Okay.
Well, not a site plan, but it would be the design review. But we can check the
It
language
was
on
in
that.
print a
We
couple
may
times,
be-
site plan review by design committee, and
Yeah.
that didn't make sense to me. Anyhow,
You're right.
I'll move on to my biggest point. I think it's been mentioned at other previous meetings, to actually get mixed use, by happenstance, we have the downtown, we have like many towns in New England, and it's charming. But to build it according to the zoning today, you have to make exceptions, a little bit bend over sideways maybe, but make exceptions and be realistic. This idea of 1 car parking per residential unit is essential. I think you need to consider every parameter possible if you actually want to see someone build mixed use, because there's certain local architects would have said it in public meetings who might be present right now. The economics are tough. So I think you should seriously consider, especially downtown, to allow 3 full stories, not this 2.5 story approach, which you don't take the same approach to Old Essex Ave and apply it downtown. That's what was originally done in our town, and we lived with it. But I think you need to see the downtown as a bit of a village and a place where you want to see certain kinds of uses, and you should seriously consider a full 3rd story at least. You should also consider allowing maybe 38 feet in height instead of 35. Again, it's not a residential neighborhood. We should stop treating it that way. If we actually want to see these charming uses we've talked about, I think a lot of people do want to see that. And similarly, the Harbor Point, you mentioned a maximum of 15 units per acre and 4 units per lot elsewhere. And we talked about potentially a residential use on the 1st floor. Maybe you should say that you don't force people into having to get a variance. Maybe you should say with this, again, with a special permit, which has a lot of scrutiny, and the new bylaws have great breadth. There's site plan review. There's a lot of review involved in special permits and site plan review more than before. Why not allow the possibility of a 5th unit or greater than 15 units per acre if they got a special permit? That way, again, you have some flexibility, lots of review, and you're not prohibiting it. And then finally, the 1st floor, you're saying you want to see retail, and I've heard that said over and over again, but it's quite possible some of the 1st floor would be beneficial for the residential units if they had a staircase there or something. So some of the 1st floor might need to be, they may want to have it as a residential use so that the residential can function. And similarly, the property owner may not want to dedicate 100% of the 1st floor plate to retail, knowing that it may be hard to find retail commercial uses. So perhaps you say there's a certain percentage of the 1st floor that must be used for retail or commercial, but not insist that 100% of it is. Those are my points.
Okay, a couple clarifications on that last one. What we're saying is that you can have in the town center, you can have residential behind your commercial use, as long as you use up to a minimum of 25 feet of the front of your building. So you can put a residential behind. But you make a good point. Perhaps it's maybe it's also a portion of that streetscape. We can think about that. But so it's not the whole 1st floor in the town center. That was the clarification that you made. One of the yeah, I guess the other thing I was going to just point out in follow-up is I think Richard, I know you still have your hand up, and I'll come back to you, but I think Richard earlier had implied, and I know from the talking with him on the sidewalk, that he and others have said that density may be too great in what we're proposing. So back to Sue's point about balance, we're hearing John and Gary say not enough residential, and others have certainly said too much residential. So we're really trying to reach a balance because that's what hopefully good policy does.
That's what the special permit would do.
So anyway, so okay, Richard, do you have you have your hand up still?
Yeah, I think what I was trying to get at wasn't so much to make an argument about what density should be, but I'm hoping that the board will look at the numbers and figure out exactly how many units could be built at the max and what that density would be. Then we could assess it on the basis of the numbers. How does it look compared to the rest of the downtown? What is the exact number of units that could be built up at the maximum without guessing, just saying, you know, at 4 units per parcel, how many do we get? At 15 units per acre in the Harbor District, how many do we get? It's a real easy number to come up with, and I think it might be good to have out front.
Okay, thank you. One of the things you folks online can't see is Peter Morton is doing a great job of writing down everybody's comments.
Gary's got his own page.
John.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to look at both our existing context, right? What we have in town as examples, and you guys are, right? Definitely the things on Central Street with the retail on the first floor and the units above. But right there in that area, there's a building, which I'm sure everyone would be very surprised to know has 13 units in it. It has no parking. Yet I don't see 13 cars spinning around the block every day trying to find parking. Somehow it works.
That's where the copper shed is, right?
Correct. Yep.
Is there parking behind it?
Like 2 spots, something like that, 2 or 3 spots. Very dense, right? But I would wonder how many people have any idea that many units are in that building, right? They're small, they're 1-bedroom apartments. But there's a lot of people in this community who would love to have a 1-bedroom apartment, could probably afford to live in our community in a 1-bedroom apartment. And then also I wonder, so if you look at our downtown and given our zoning, which has been in place since when?
1947.
Thank you, 1947. What projects, what mixed use has our zoning produced downtown? Because you'd think, right, since 1947, there'd be projects that have been done within our zoning. If our zoning were written in a way to encourage those types of projects. The truth is, the last one that was done was 1977. And it was the mixed use, that's the bank with the unit, with the retail behind it. I'm not sure what the address is exactly.
Cape Ann
Cape Ann
Savings Bank.
Savings.
Cape Ann Savings Bank. So there's something wrong with our zoning. Since 1977, nothing else has been built. There have been some 40Bs that were built, but that's not within our zoning, right? That's folks building in ways that enable them to go around our zone.
So John, are you saying it's a good idea to change the zoning? Because what's happened
Yes.
is,
I think it's an excellent thing to change our zoning if we're changing it in a way to incentivize people to do projects in our town. For example, I assume Note 5 would still be in play, which would require a special permit for any multifamily to be done. What if we had a by right multifamily? So a
We do.
special permit wasn't required.
We have one in all the MBTA shots.
Correct. Yeah, but
We haven't had one bill yet.
But conspicuously, all the MBTA is not in our downtown district, right?
there's overlap, some of it is.
Some of it is. A bit of it is, yeah. So my basic point is, I firmly believe that if we want to encourage retail, we must incentivize housing. No one's gonna come in and build a retail building. Not in our town. They're gonna build housing. And we want to incentivize them to include retail on the first floor. But I also would wager a guess that we can barely support the retail we have. So while I think we're doing a great thing to try and protect our retail, if we want to encourage it and make it more vibrant, I think we have to start by thinking about how do we encourage housing and then have that help produce the retail as part of it in the mixed use, as opposed to the other way around.
So I'm gonna just give you my opinion, and that this is, I don't know why people have not, we have some of our properties are owned by one family, many of our properties are owned by a single family. And I don't know what their motivation has been. And it may just be that the status quo has satisfied their economic needs or whatever, I don't know. But what we do know is that the market is ripe for retail. Not for retail, for residential.
Residential, correct.
I think we largely all agree on that, and that the cargo building, for example, it reflects, and the 7 Central building reflects that residential is where the market is. And so our concern here is that we don't want to lose the commercial and the retail to 100% residential. That's the big concern. Rather than the flip, which is to try to encourage commercial and retail at the expense of others. It's really to avoid loss of those storefronts, which are part of what make our downtown vital.
Can I make a
Yeah,
statement
go ahead.
also? One of the things that people don't understand about the current zoning is that 7 Central could have been torn down and replaced with a single-family house. And that would have left a missing tooth in the downtown. So the biggest part, I think, of this zoning proposal is to not allow single-family houses in the downtown anymore. And to encourage instead smaller units, residential units above retail spaces to keep the streets intact and the commerce flowing. Unfortunately, I don't think the zoning is going to do all that just by itself. It needs a lot of other things to happen as well. And other parts of the town government are gonna have to step up and do them.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Dave McKenna. I live at 37 Beach Street. I think there's a little piece of fairness here too for the property owners. Because basically what we're talking about is restricting what they can do with their properties. The most valuable thing they can do right now is build residential. And if you look at Rockport, Gloucester, Newburyport, they all changed their downtown zoning as well. And what they included in there, and I know it might not be part of the planning board's oversight, but they include a 10-year freeze on assessments as some type of fairness thing back to the property owners, because now they've put restrictions on the property owners saying you can't do this with your property.
You've got 3 members of the select board here.
Just-
Here, you're just letting you know.
So something to think about. And yeah, Gloucester was most recently in 2022. They put a 10-year freeze on assessments for that. They call it marine industrial zone, their downtown area.
Can I ask a question? Are you for that or against putting the restrictions on use?
I want to maintain our downtown, and I agree this is a tool, but you're putting restrictions on people and you have to be fair as well. I agree with the previous comment, which was let's incentivize people to add retail. How do you incentivize them? Let them go, let them build the residential, let them build it. Put zoning in place so that they can build residential and give you retail. Give you the trade-off. I mean, these guys can't get any money for rents for retail. 35 Beach Street, that restaurant, I know what the rent is. It's small. They could rent that out for a single family house for like twice what they're getting from the restaurant. And so something needs to be done there.
Could I piggyback on that comment? Because I've been involved in some downtown renovation projects before outside of Massachusetts, and some towns have matching grant programs where they actually put their money where their mouth is and help contribute. And what your suggestion is great, and it's a bigger picture consideration. Maybe even for parking, maybe there's some parking spaces behind town hall that the town could dedicate to certain lots if they're developed the way they want to see them developed. Or some other financial equivalent incentive. That's something towns do, and we just have to think that way, think bigger picture.
I think certainly Kathy walked us through on a couple of different occasions, a number of tools that exist for vitalizing downtowns, and zoning is one of those. So I think we are probably in agreement that there are other tools. What they are and what's right for Manchester, I'm not sure I know right now, but right now we're trying to get a zoning bylaw to the voters on the third week in April.
28.
April 28th. Mark your calendars right now. But thank you for that thought. The other thing, just to sort of make sure everybody understands, is that these zoning changes, if passed, apply when you make a major change to your building. They don't require that you make any change to your existing building today. It's just the way any zoning does. And then the intersection with the MBTA zoning, this would, because there are two areas which have a community housing overlay district or a CHOD. And that is by Seabreeze Variety and on Elm Street. And so this is simply changing the underlying zoning. Both of those are in District G to Town Center. Both of those would be in the Town Center district. The CHOD, the Community Housing Overlay District, would be on top of this new underlying zoning. So you could still build the multifamily in those areas. And you had a question or hand up? Oh.
I just
Sandy,
wanted
okay.
to respond to something John said, because I think that Paul, I think the understanding is general that we need more people downtown. And that's a good thing. And I think the piece of this, the Harbor's Edge District, is a really important point to think about how that adds potentially more housing compared to what exists now. So the Harbor Point property, I think, is a bit over 2 acres. So with the current A zoning, you could build 4 single-family homes. And with this in place, you could build 30 units. So that's the attempt to kind of make a balance between concern about density, but also getting the zoning right, because it's just wrong at the moment.
Fully support that.
Other comments online? I'm not seeing any other comments. I do invite everyone to email us, to come to our next forum, to talk about it, to visit the material on the website. Frequently asked questions. We'll try to think about your input as we refine this. So with that, what I'd like to do is very briefly take your 5 more minutes of your attention and share with you another zoning change that we are contemplating. I have it here, so do it. Thanks.
You're still on
Okay,
duty. Peter.
let's see if I can do it. We have, and this is related to downtown, because we heard in one of our forums, we heard people say that they would like to be able to have an inn within the downtown. And so as a separate article, because we don't want to confuse the downtown zoning article, we are contemplating a zoning article that would allow hotels and inns in certain districts. And I don't have any pretty pictures on this, but a hotel or an inn is a building without a rooming facility without cooking facilities for transient occupants with a common entrance. It might include a restaurant or a bar, and it might include recreational facilities if those facilities were allowed in the underlying district. And an inn is smaller, it's limited to 12 rooms for overnight guests. That's the distinction between that we're proposing for the two. And what we are proposing, the reason is that overnight visitors help to contribute to economic vitality in a downtown. And it was identified by a number of people in that June forum. So where are we thinking about it? In 4 different districts. A hotel would not be allowed in the town center, but would be allowed in the Harbor's Edge. Those are larger lots with a special permit. Not allowed in the general district, and with a special permit in the limited commercial district, and not allowed in any of the other residential districts. An inn would be allowed by right in either of our new town center districts, with a special permit in the remaining general district, and by right in the limited commercial district. This is where we're starting. So And we would have a, addition to the parking table for one on-site, space per guest, room. So this is a proposal that we're, beginning to think about, and, be interested to hear your reactions or comments.
I just.
Yes, please.
We all know where the limited commercial district is, but maybe not everybody online does. The limited commercial district is on the other side of 128, where the MAC is and where the cell signaling project is underway. Just.
Yeah. So we don't have to have a lot of discussion, but we wanted to take, since we had you captive, to introduce it. John, you have, look like you're raising your hand.
Yeah, just a quick question. I think this is great, by the way. I think the town could really benefit from having a place for people to stay. It would add vibrancy. It would be people who would be going to our restaurants, and going to our shops, maybe parking their boat and coming and spending the night, who knows? But I wonder, I think by right is great. It would definitely incentivize people. An inn especially, but I wonder if an inn, let's say, has 5 rooms to rent, perhaps, if they're using an existing building that's likely the size that it might be, and if that's allowed by right. Just gonna throw it out there again, we should allow in those same districts 4 units, multifamily allowed by right. And then I'd be really happy.
Okay. I see it as pretty different in terms of scale.
Interesting. I think it's similar.
Okay. All right, we'll hear you. Other comments? What's your first reaction, Jeff, or?
I like the idea of having inns. Were there any ideas to limiting the number of hotel rooms?
By special permit. But we didn't, this, and it really, the lot size kind of dictates, we don't have huge lots in the, so I think the largest lot would be the Harbor's Point lot, is 2.5, 3 acres. So, it kind of, lot size kind of does.
Places itself, yeah.
But we were trying to keep it simple. As Sue says, the devil's in all the details, but it seemed like this one we could be pretty simple. So, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see online who's got comments. Anybody online have a comment? Again, this is an idea we're developing, and please send us your thoughts about what. Other comments from the board that we've not included, or we want to make sure people hear, or? Pretty much covers it. Okay, with that, I'm going to, Richard, you still have your hand up? Do you have anything?
Oh, I'm just going to comment on the inns and hotels.
Great.
That's an intriguing idea, and I think I agree with what some of the others have said. It could be a very good thing. I'm a little concerned about what the implications might be when you extend that to the entire general district. I assume that when you talk about an inn, you're probably most likely talking about conversion of an existing building. I don't know how many of those you would have in the, I don't think there's many, if any, in the Harbor's Edge district, which is sort of a prime area for that kind of construction. But I just would be cautious in what it means to add both hotel space and residential space at the same time, and how those might possibly interact in the overall density computation.
Okay, thank you. And I think conversion certainly could be considered of any kind of properties. Or in that, and how a home could be converted into a 5-unit bed and breakfast.